everybody, and welcome to the Millennial Revolt, an independent political talk show that seeks to bring a different narrative than the stale one we have going on right now in the mainstream media. So today we are going to be talking about the new picks that Donald Trump has announced to be in his cabinet. We're going to be talking about Jeff Sessions, we're going to be talking about Mike Flynn, and we're going to be talking about Mike Pompeo. We're also going to be talking about some of the names that have been floated around this week and some of the people who I think are good and some of the people who I think are bad. So let's just get right into it because there's just so much to discuss. This person that we are going to be talking about is Senator Jeff Sessions. Now, Jeff Sessions was one of Donald Trump's earliest congressional backers. He's also one of the most conservative senators to serve as the nation's top law enforcement official. Jeff Sessions is 69 years old. He is a four-term Alabama Republican and is a hardliner on free trade, immigration, and he's argued that prospective immigrants don't have constitutional rights. He has opposed an effort to overhaul the prison sentencing, back off the war on drugs and legalize marijuana. Sessions is also a former federal prosecutor. He was one of the few lawmakers to defend Trump after he proposed a complete shutdown on Muslims entering the U.S. I think if Donald Trump was going to be doing that, I think that would raise a lot of issues when we already have a divided country. So I think he has to be very careful if he decides to approach any situations involving the Muslim community as well as immigrants coming into the country from places within the Middle East that has a lot of terrorist activity. The Attorney General represents the U.S. in legal matters and gives advice to the President and government agencies. The Justice Department's broad portfolio includes prosecution of white-collar crimes and enforcement of antitrust and civil rights laws. Sessions would oversee all the U.S. attorneys' offices. Senator from Texas Ted Cruz and the one-time Trump rival was also under serious consideration for the role of Attorney General. Rudy Giuliani's name was also floated around for Attorney General. The problem that I had with Rudy Giuliani is he kept saying that he would bring back stop and frisk. Now, given the fact that I have two brothers, I have my dad, that's very worrying to me, and especially if they were going to try that on a federal level. My whole thing is, I'm trying to be pragmatic. If they were going to do it, they should do that on a state level. I think they should hold a referendum and see what the American people decide state by state. But given the fact that it was already ruled unconstitutional, we don't have to worry about that. Also, Ted Cruz just seems very fishy to me. There's something about him that's just very slimy. He's such an insider. He seems like he'll just stab everyone in the back. I don't want that type of person being the Attorney General because it raises a lot of questions to me. And he is a constitutionalist, which in some ways I can see why Donald Trump would want him to be the Attorney General, because he'll follow the Constitution, he'll follow the laws. But if he was going to do that, he would probably be in a better position to be as a Supreme Court justice. Though I would see a lot of people on the left raising eyebrows about that, given his stance on abortion, given his stance on gay marriage. But as Donald Trump said, that is a done deal. Sessions chaired Donald Trump's National Security Advisory Committee. He also advised Donald Trump on who to choose for vice president. Sessions was also in the running for the job as number 2 himself. Now, Sessions has a lot of popularity back home. Aside from his first election in 1996, Sessions has never won with less than 59% of the vote. In 2014, he ran unopposed. Jeff Sessions has a lot of controversy surrounding him right now, but he's probably not going to have a hard time getting confirmed because the Senate is in Republicans' control, but there will probably be a lot of filibustering from the Democrats. In 1986, a Senate committee denied Jeff Sessions, a then 39-year-old U.S. attorney from Alabama, not a federal judgeship. His former colleagues testified against Jeff Sessions, saying that he used the N-word and joked about the Ku Klux Klan, saying that they were okay until they learned to smoke weed. In 1986, Jeff Sessions defended himself against accusations of racism. He said, "I am not the Jeff Sessions my detractors have tried to create," he told the Senate Judiciary Committee he now sits on. He says, "I am not a racist. I am not insensitive to blacks." And he told Stanley Becker this summer that racism is totally unacceptable in America. Everybody needs to treat everyone fairly and objectively. But the Southern Poverty Law Center Heidi Beckridge, who tracks hate speech, says that Sessions is guilty of it, and that his mere presence in Trump's inner circle is a tragedy for American politics. Now, please keep in mind that the Southern Poverty Law Center are the same people who also labeled Pepe the Frog as a hate symbol. Now, when you think of hate symbols, you think of a swastika, and then you have a green cartoon frog that is used for memes on the internet. So, in my opinion, the Southern Poverty Law Center has lost all credibility because they're engaging in certain phony outrage as well. I think that you have to be very careful about calling people racist. I said this in a previous video. It is such a strong word, but the term has been so stretched and loosely applied to every single little thing. Now, if there is real instances of racism and hate and bigoted speech in his background, it should be investigated, and it should be brought to the American people's attention, and it should be analyzed and criticized. But if people are saying this and these things were just said to derail his position to try to get ahead, I think that's wrong. I think we should also give Jeff Sessions a chance to clarify any statements that he has said in the past, to also explain himself to the American people, and don't judge him by his comments. Judge him on his work and judge him by his record to see if he has the qualifications to stand up as our nation's top lawyer. I don't care about what he's done in the past. Me personally, I can't speak for everyone else. I care about his record, and I care about if he has the qualifications to be our nation's top lawyer. The next person that we're going to be talking about is Michael Flynn. He has been tapped as Donald Trump's national security advisor, and I like this pick, even though he has said some very controversial things about Muslims and the religion of Islam, which is very worrying. Besides that, I think it is an amazing pick. He is very anti-establishment, and he was one of the first ones to come out and say in the beginning that the Obama administration created ISIS in order to destabilize areas of the Middle East, especially in Syria. We already know that the Obama administration was trying to overthrow the Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad. Now, Michael Flynn's advocates say that his experience battling Islamic militants in Iraq and Afghanistan, along with candor that has ruffled feathers in Washington more than once, makes him the canon of ally Trump's needs on his national security team. David Dupella, a retired Air Force Lieutenant General who used to work with Flynn, praised his willingness to speak truth to power and not politicize his answers. He said that Mike Flynn is a straight shooter and a no bullshit kind of guy, and that's exactly what we need in times of senior leaders giving advice to the national leadership. Michael Flynn has a 3-decade military career. He also heavily influenced the Trump campaign, and he is a registered Democrat. In 2014, he was forced out as head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. The appointment of Michael Flynn has set off some alarm bells in Washington because he sat at a table with President Vladimir Putin at a gala dinner in Moscow for RT. California Representative Adam Schiff of California applauded Michael Flynn's military services, but claims that his supposed Russian connections undermines his qualifications. He said that some of his policy positions he advocated a kind of new affinity for Russians and the Kremlin, which concerns me greatly. He also criticized Flynn for an op-ed he wrote calling Fethullah Gulen, a Turkish imam, which was granted permanent residency in the United States, as a radical Islamist. On Friday, Representative Elijah Cummings of Maryland sought more information from the President-elect Donald Trump's transition team about his apparent conflicts of interest. He released a letter sent to Vice President-elect Mike Pence, who is running the transition process, and released a memorandum of understanding signed last week by the former head of the transition team, Christie, and White House Chief of Staff Dennis McDown, that stipends that in order to receive non-public or classified information, members of the transition team must sign a statement that he or she has no financial interests or imputed financial interests that would be directed or pre-directly affected by a particular matter to which the information is predetermined. President-elect Trump promised during the campaign that he would drain the swamp, but his top national security advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who is reportedly being paid to lobby the U.S. government by a close ally of the Turkish president, Cummings said in a statement. It's unclear how Lieutenant General Flynn was reportedly allowed into intelligence briefings during the campaign despite these apparent conflicts of interests. So the next person we're going to be talking about is Representative Mike Pompeo, who is a three-term senator from Wichita, Kansas. He originally supported Florida Senator Marco Rubio in his presidential bid, like most of his Kansas colleagues. Now, Mike Pompeo has been tapped as the new director of the CIA. Pompeo was close to Donald Trump's running mate, Indiana Governor Mike Pence, when he served with Pompeo in the House. Pompeo also helped Pence prepare for his vice presidential debate against Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia. Pompeo is a member of the House Select Committee on Intelligence and one of the most vocal critics of the Obama administration nuclear deal with Iran. He's a supporter of the National Security Agency controversial bulk data collection program and sought to restore the agency's access to the data it had already collected under the Patriot Act from its inception through late last year. He's a graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point and Harvard Law School. He's also a member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Pompeo also came in with the Tea Party movement as somebody who is supposed to be a part of the Tea Party movement, and their whole thing is don't tread on me, government is shitty, and all of that stuff, which I'm paraphrasing. But how do you support the Patriot Act and support the NSA basically collecting all of our metadata and violating the Fourth Amendment? To me, that doesn't make any sense. It's just backwards. Pompeo has also sponsored numerous bills that would maintain or increase sanctions over Iran and its nuclear program. He was also a staunch opponent of the deal negotiated by President Barack Obama and Secretary of State John Kerry that eases sanctions in exchange for dismantling the nuclear weapons program of Iran. Iran never had a nuclear weapons program to begin with. It was just very stupid for them to continue to try to go after them. They weren't trying to build nuclear weapons in the first place. And Republicans really need to get off their high horse and keep continuing to attack Iran and trying to basically fuck up their economy. It seems like we use sanctions and weaponize it because other countries aren't going along with our doctrine and how we see the world. And I think that's extremely dangerous. This is why we have problems with Russia, and we have problems with Iran, and we have problems with China because of situations like this. If we really want to go after a country in the Middle East, should be going after Saudi Arabia, which is the leading sponsor of terrorism in the world. But again, that's our allies, and I'm getting off the point. Pompeo also served on the House Select Benghazi Committee. The special panel was created in 2014 to probe the September 11, 2012 attacks in Libya that killed 4 Americans. Pompeo has also made some controversial statements about Muslims week after the Boston Marathon bombings in 2013. In a speech on the House floor, he not only accused Islamic faith leaders of not doing enough to condemn terrorist attacks, but also selected they might be encouraging them. He said, when the most devastating terrorist attack on America in the last 20 years comes overwhelmingly from the people of a single faith and are performed in the name of that faith, a special obligation falls on those that are the leaders of the faith. Instead of responding, silence has made these Islamic leaders across America potentially complicit in these acts, and more importantly, still in those that may well follow. So, very controversial remarks. These are some of the people who have been announced in Donald Trump's administration. Now, as I said, I do like Michael Flynn, even though he has made controversial remarks. Jeff Sessions has made some very controversial remarks as well, and it seems Mike Pompeo has made some very controversial remarks. And I think if Donald Trump wants to have a very smooth transition into power, he has to try to avoid a lot of these controversies. So now we're going to be talking about some of the names that have been floated around. And the first person I want to talk about is Michael Bolton. Now, this man should be nowhere near Donald Trump's administration. Whoever thought of this man should be immediately kicked out. And I'm not even joking. This man was the cheerleader of the Bush Doctrine. He was a proud person going out there pushing the lies of the WMDs. He still thinks it was a good idea to invade Iraq. This man is a war criminal of the highest sort and should be in prison along with George W. Bush. Now, to have this man supposedly tapped or to be even in the running to be Secretary of State, I don't care how much you want to unite the Republican base and how much you want to get the Republican establishment on your side. This man is a horrible choice. And if you want to have a balanced foreign policy, if you want to have an inclusive foreign policy that has good relationships with Russia, do not put this man in your White House. And again, whoever suggested this disgusting piece of shit should be immediately kicked out of the transition team. It should never be, should never have been even put on the list. What a disgusting man Michael Bolton is. So the next person that we're going to be talking about is Christie, and I'm glad that he was ousted from the Trump transition team. He was loading a lot of people in the Donald Trump's transition team with a lot of lobbyists, and they quickly removed all of those people right away. Now, Christie also still has that Bridgegate scandal going on, so I thought he wasn't going to be appointed to any position because I thought it would be stupid to try to appoint Christie to a position while he has that scandal going on in New Jersey. Now, New Jersey residents doesn't even like Christie as well. Christie also screams of corruption, and he's just one of the worst sort of candidates to try to put in Donald Trump's administration because he is seen as an establishment figure. He's also seen as a very corrupt establishment figure. Now, I like Christie. He was actually funny in some areas during the campaign. I like the way he handled the hurricane as well. But Christie is a very toxic figure I don't think Donald Trump needs in his administration. So it's a good thing that he was forced out. The next person we're going to be talking about is Mitt Romney. Now, Mitt Romney is meeting with President-elect Trump, and it is a big deal in the news. Now, it is being floated around that Mitt Romney might probably be offered the position of Secretary of State, which is one of the most important jobs that could be given to anyone in Donald Trump's cabinet. Now, Mitt Romney earlier in the presidential campaign came out strongly against Donald Trump, calling him a liar, a phony, a fraud, a con. He said very derogatory things about him. Now, I personally think this is a bad idea, but pragmatically, I can understand why Donald Trump would want to meet with Mitt Romney. He wants to be seen as a person who is trying to bring his base together to consolidate establishment Republicans and his core base supporters. but I can tell you that his base supporters do not like Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney is seen as a fiscal conservative. He is also a mini war hawk as well. I remember he was saying that during the 2012 debate that our biggest enemy is Russia. And again, if Donald Trump wants to have good relationships with Russia, do not put a person as Secretary of State who is opposed to what you were trying to do. It just doesn't make any sense. Mitt Romney isn't even well received. He isn't even well liked with base Republicans. Maybe in the establishment, he has a lot of support. But your whole point is to drain the swamp, as you say. Why would you put someone who it was your bitter rival during the campaign? Now, I can understand that just may be political banter and you may be in campaign mode, but bring him over, have a talk with him, but don't offer him one of the highest positions in our country. That would just be stupid. Don't make the same mistake that President Obama did by offering Hillary Clinton a job she did not deserve. And look what that happened. She destroyed a whole fucking country because of it, because of her stupidity. So I would have him think very carefully. You're already going to have a lot of Democrats bashing any choice and pick you make for your administration. You need to be very smart, and he needs to be very careful who he picks. I personally would like to see Rand Paul as Treasury in the Treasury Department, or even Ron Paul. He would be able to lock up the libertarians and be able to get a lot of young people on his side if he puts Rand Paul or Ron Paul in the Treasury Department. So somebody should really float that idea to him. So I will definitely keep you guys updated on any of the Trump appointments to his administration. Thank you guys so much for watching, and you have a wonderful day. Bye.